Welcome. We are honored to have you join us as we commemorate the 77th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I'm Colleen Rodriguez, the CEO of Jewish Family and Community Services. We look forward to sharing with you the Frisch Family Holocaust Memorial Gallery and the words from those of our survivors and their family members. JFCS has had the privilege of serving the entire community for over 100 years. And we do that through our child welfare program, protecting children that have been abused and neglected, by preventing mental health and substance abuse services, through financial assistance in our Max Block food pantry, our school based programs, and of course, by supporting our survivors and the Jewish community. We serve the entire community. All are welcome through our doors. Today is important. It helps us honor the commitment we've made to our survivors that we would share the stories of those we've lost, of those we still have with us, and to ensure we continue to educate the community about the strength of those impacted by the Holocaust and by sharing some of the horrific acts that took place. We must do our part in making sure history doesn't repeat itself. Never again. A powerful reminder and a promise to survivors that the next generations will do better. By joining us today, you are helping us keep that promise. Thank you. I will now turn our presentation over to Hope McMath, the curator of our gallery.
Good evening, and welcome to this special gathering this evening in commemoration of International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Colleen said it right. We in part gather together to proclaim that we will never allow this to happen again. Tonight and tomorrow, the world marks this anniversary in which the extermination camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau was liberated on January 27th of 1945. This is a night and a day that we will remember the 6 million Jewish people and millions of others who were victims of a genocide perpetrated by the Nazis in collaboration with many others and supported by millions who were neighbors, co-workers, and fellow members of our human family. We commemorate one of the most horrendous losses known in human history that goes beyond simply the awful losses of war, but actually marks the moment in which people tried to exterminate an entire people. It was a time based in hate and bigotry, beginning with the methodical dehumanization of people and ending in mass murder on a scale that is still so difficult, I think, for us to comprehend. But this is also a day for us to remember. Remember those who were murdered and also those who experienced deprivation, displacement, and the daily terror of that time. And we also hold space tonight for the survivors, those who carry forth the trauma of their family, the resilience of those who survived, and play a huge role in continuing to educate the rest of us and really the entire world about not only what happened, but the impacts that that still has today on them as individual people, on us as smaller communities, and on society at large. Elie Wiesel said that for the dead and the living, we must bear witness. And I think tonight, in part, we're trying to answer that question. How do we bear witness to something so awful? And why do we care to remember this moment? Well, at its essence, it's because the people who were killed matter. They mattered then, they still matter to us today. But I also want you, as we go through this evening, to be thinking about those kinds of questions, and in particular, the question of what is the role each of us play today in remembering, reckoning, and reimagining a world that would never let something like this take place. How do we reckon with a horrific history like the Holocaust? And in what ways can each of us play a role in repairing the world? How do we remember? How do we mourn? Something that for some people feels like ancient history, but actually it is not. So, one way in which we grieve and we remember and reflect and learn is to gather together. And that's what we're doing here tonight. Another way is to create spaces that allow this history to be told, but also allow people to gather to sort of share in the learning that might be on the walls of a place like this. And this space that I'm standing in tonight is exactly one of those spaces. And I am so honored at this moment to turn the next few minutes of our time together over to Morris Bendit. He is a father, a husband, a grandfather, a Holocaust survivor who survived as a child, but has stayed absolutely committed to making sure that this history remains alive for people, not to wallow in the past, but to sort of proclaim that we can and must be better. And he is also the driving force behind the monument that you see behind me. So with that, we're going to hear about this monument from Morris himself.
Hello, everybody. Years ago, after my mother went to heaven, I realized that the Holocaust generation, disappearing very, very fast. In no time, there won't be anyone left to tell about what happened. And we have to tell what happened, because history repeats itself. People should know. So I took over and I started speaking as much as I could to schools, churches, and any organization they asked me to, I did it, speak there. But then it came to a point after a few years that I realized I'm not going to be here forever either. I want to leave something behind me to continue my mission, to talk about it. But something more solid, something that can last longer. And that's why I came up with this memorial made out of stone. So it's written in stone, so to speak. And hopefully it's going to last for many, many generations to come, to teach, not to forget what happened. This headstone represents all the 6 million headstones that we cannot put them up. And as you can see, there are no names over here because you cannot put all the names on it. So we did this, put the countries. There were 21 European countries that 9 million Jews lived at the time before the war, World War II. And they were occupied by Nazi Germany, the Third Reich. 2/3 out of the 9 million vanished, were murdered, burned, any which way you can think of. So there's no cemeteries, no headstones, no marker even. So what it has, it's a map of all the 21 countries that the 6 billion vanished. And in each country, you have the numbers, how many died in that country. There's even an extra country in Africa, if you can see here, which is Libya, and it's not in Europe, but it was under Italian control and Mussolini was a good friend of Hitler. So there are like 562 people were taken to Auschwitz from Libya. Nobody heard of that before. Now what you see over here is only a few ghettos. Those were the major ghettos. For instance, the one I was in is a little child. It's right here in front of me. And that wasn't the little one. It was approximately 50,000 Jews were taken there. Now from all those ghettos, to the ghettos, you see the images above with that little boy, a very famous image. They were driven to the ghettos at the time. But after a few months, couple months later, were all taken to death camps. So you look up there, there are 6 eternal lights built into the wall. They are called in Hebrew, they're called Ner Tamid. They are lit and flicker 24/7. Now we're going to go to the future. Right here, there's a granddaughter, a child. What she does, she crosses out numbers. Now those numbers in Hebrew, they are translated to the word Shoah. Shoah means Holocaust. And she puts down on the bottom, never again. And she means it. Now, never again is not a slogan. Never again means not to let your guards down. And make sure that no other human disaster ever happens again. I leave you with this thought. Living the past is not healthy. Remembering the past is essential. Thank you.
Thank you, Morris, so much. And a powerful call to action, I think, for all of us. Morris is going to join us soon in a conversation towards the end when we will have time to bring all of your voices into this conversation with questions. And we are just very grateful for Morris's passion for creating this memorial and for all that he does in the way that he moves through this world. I have the great pleasure to be the guest curator here at Jewish Family and Community Services and to do my work in this Frisch Family Holocaust Memorial Gallery. I run into people every week who still don't know that this space exists. Now, of course, we have been closed for almost 2 years now, well, right at 2 years because of the pandemic, but we've continued to stay vibrant and relevant with virtual programs from the space. And we are giving you a little bit of a glimpse tonight into the latest exhibition within this space. In the past, we have done exhibitions of survivors, of rescuers. The show that we just took down focused on women and their unique and amazing roles during the Holocaust. And now we are about to launch an exhibition called Art in the Holocaust. It is an exhibition that again comes to us from Yad Vashem, which is the International Holocaust Resource Center in Israel. And it's the second show that we've borrowed from them. And what it is 20 stories by 20 artists using images and their experiences during the Holocaust. It is a powerful show that deals with themes of connection and isolation and terror and healing and horror and beauty and all of those sort of complicated human experiences that sometimes only the arts can really portray in their fullest form. They're not the original works of art because Yad Vashem doesn't let those go. They are digital reproductions of 20 selections from their collection, and they're incredibly moving. And they share parts of the Holocaust that sort of parallel what Morris was sharing with us. Because we have to remember the Holocaust wasn't something that just happened. It wasn't a switch that was flipped. The rise of the Nazis and the groundwork that was laid for their goal of extermination of the Jewish people took place over many years. And so the art in this show is from 1939 to 1945, but we know the groundwork was laid even before that. There was an attack on institutions, on journalists, on artists, on truth tellers. People were targeted, right? And that targeting took many forms, marking them, taking away their homes and businesses, isolating them from education, putting them into ghettos to separate them from the rest of society, forcing them into slave labor, extermination, through false narratives, through fear, and by stoking flames of bigotry that allowed lots of other people to join in the dirty work of the Nazis. And of course, all this led to genocide. And this exhibition has works of art that touch on all those various themes. Just the three works that are behind me here, I think express the diversity of experiences that happened during the Holocaust and the various ways that art played a role. Now there's a painting right here behind me, or a reproduction of a painting that is incredibly beautiful. It's by an artist whose name is Josef Kauner. And it is a painting of the Lutz ghetto, painted in 1942, a place where he was imprisoned. And yet this painting looks like an impressionistic work from the French countryside on a peaceful, beautiful, sunny spring day in which safety was the norm. But of course, that's not what was happening in the Lutz ghetto, not at all. So how could an artist create an image of such beauty in a time and a place where so much ugliness was happening? Well, we have to remember, art often is a means of escape. It can be a means of hanging on to our humanity. And we can assume that those two things played a role in the creation of that particular work. And then in contrast, we have the work that is behind me here, which is a powerful work by Leo Haas that is dark in all ways, dark visually and dark in its subject matter. And it actually puts together 25 small scenes from another ghetto. Two very different approaches. One that is maybe art about escapism, trying to hang on to themselves by hanging on to the concept of beauty. The other is more a document. This was an artist using his art to say, this is what I see. This is what is happening around me. This is what food scarcity looks like. This is what it looks like for us to try to take care of our children and our sick elders. This is what it looks like to live in a place that is surrounded by barbed wire, that is constantly patrolled, where the living conditions are horrific. And then there are artists who created work that is incredibly poignant in this show, that is foretelling of their demise. The two artists I just shared with you, they were both liberated. They survived as human beings, and their art also survived. But Felix Nussbaum, whose piece is sort of at the end of this row, he is an artist who did not survive. In fact, in 1935, when he already saw the writing on the wall with Hitler's rise, he left and he became a refugee. And he did well for a few years until he was finally arrested and imprisoned. And then he escaped, And then he again fled and he hid. All along, he was making art and sending that art back to families. And finally, he and his wife were arrested and sent on the very last transport from Belgium to Auschwitz-Birkenau. And both of them were murdered. With all the work that is in this show, I find myself really moved by the fact that any of it still survived. Some of it, like with a few of these artists, like Felix Nussbaum, he was sending it to family, using it as a means to communicate to the outside world what was happening. Others, the work survived with them, and in some, the art was hidden and sometimes not found until decades later in the walls of abandoned homes, in ghettos and homes with hidden spaces in which rescuers were trying to save their neighbors. So it really is a powerful show. And it's a reminder to us that one of the best ways that we can learn is by listening deeply to the people who actually had the experience itself. We can read books, we can watch videos. There's so many ways for us to learn together. And we know that's important because recent studies have shown that 1 out of 10 people under the age of 40 don't know what the Holocaust was. They can't even define the word. So it matters that we have this kind of education. And fortunately tonight, we are going to hear from one of our second generation survivors. We've already heard from Morris. Now I'm really excited in a moment to introduce you to Gloria Einstein. She is a member of a second generation group of speakers that have been working together for almost 2 years now here at Jewish Family Community Services. We meet on the regular, and we did so weekly via Zoom all throughout the pandemic as these second generation survivors began stepping into the shoes of their parents and other family members who no longer could tell these stories. And these stories are powerful to hear not only what happened to their families, but how does it still impact them today? As a child of a survivor, what does it mean to carry that knowledge, that trauma, that understanding of what your family went through? The fact that you don't have an extended family the way so many other people do, because you lost to murderers, your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents, sometimes your siblings. So Gloria is here to share a bit of the story of her mother. And it's a story that is remarkable and how it relates back to this show about the importance of art in shining a bright light, sometimes in the very darkest of moments. So Gloria, we would love to sort of welcome you more fully into the space. We know you've been with us observing, and now it is almost your time to take this over. So give me a moment while you introduce yourself to the group, and I'll let you know when we're ready.
Thank you, Hope. I'm Gloria Einstein, and I appreciate everyone who has given their time and attention to commemorate the individuals, the families, the communities that were destroyed by the Holocaust. And I also really appreciate the Frisch Family Gallery and its partnership with Yad Vashem, because every time they have an exhibit, they give me a new way to think about my family's story and to try to talk about it and communicate it.
Okay, Gloria, you're set.
My mother wrote 2 poems while she was in a slave labor camp. I will read them, but you will not hear her words. She wrote the poems in Czech, the language of her school, the language she knew best, a language I don't know at all. I don't know who translated them into English, not her, certainly, because the translations contain English words she never used. So reading these poems is like looking through frosted glass. I trust the translator is writing about my mother's ideas and feelings, but the way they're expressed doesn't feel like my mother, but like some unknown professor trying to tell me what my mother was trying to say. I would feel closer to the poems if I could read and understand them in Czech. I wonder if my mother and I would have understood each other better if I could have conversed with her in the language in which she had expressed her strongest feelings of fear and desperation. There was a lot that was wonderful about my parents being able to come to America in 1946. But it was also a time when no one valued the preservation of immigrants' languages. So after I was about a year old, my parents determined to speak only English at home. And I lost the chance to learn all the languages that they knew. Here is one of the poems. Mother. Does any one of you know what being a mother is? Only an angel can compare to her, a source of comfort and bliss. Whether poor or rich, she gives her all to her offspring. Even in the most dire circumstances, she shields them with loving care. When the babe is yet in the cradle, while she sings a lullaby to rock him to sleep, her thoughts race into the future, seeing him fully grown, big and strong. On the road to maturity, she shields, teaches, and guides him to make sure he gets the best she could possibly give him. And now that God has punished us so severely, and we are torn apart one from the other, it is mother who suffers most gravely. Even if she has a morsel to survive on, she trembles with anxiety for her child. She gropes. She wants to know, did he eat? Is he warm? Is his suffering less severe, more mild? My dear children, while the earth races in its course and mountains rise and tumble, your mother's love is steady as a rock, reliable, enduring. We know for certain that she searches for us. Our hands are stretched out to seek her help. Come quick, we need you. O creator of heaven and earth, who fashioned us all, your children are lost in the forest with wild beasts all around. We need your help and guidance as never before. Drive away the dark clouds. Bring out the sun to show us the way. The people you have chosen are imploring. Don't let us perish. She was not a mother when she wrote this. She was describing the love and devotion she experienced from her own mother and what she observed of her mother with her 6 younger siblings. If you wonder how she wrote the poems down and how she brought them out of the slave labor camp, I wonder the same thing. I am desperate to know how she did it and how she felt about it later. She lived till I was past 40, but I never asked her those questions. And I cannot understand why I did not. Was I afraid of the answers I would get? Or was I just too immature to realize it was important to ask? She was not one of those people who never talked about the Holocaust or her experiences. And she wasn't one of those who never talked about anything else. She told us some important things, and she answered honestly when we asked. But we asked so little, and now it's too late. Even telling you her name is complicated. Her family called her Mirci, but in Czech, her name was Markéta. In English, she used the name Margaret, but that sounds like the English version of the poems, much more formal than she was. Her Hebrew name, I thought, was Miriam, but it turns out it was Mirza, a name I never knew about till I saw it on her gravestone. I never called her any of these, but just Mommy and later Mom. She was the second oldest of 8 children, 1 sister and 6 brothers. She remembered her family as being poor but resourceful, happy and supportive. She was proud of her country of Czechoslovakia created just a few years before she was born out of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which had ruled the area up until World War I. And she was very proud of the new Czech school she attended. To my knowledge, she never wrote poems before or after her experience in the Holocaust. The art that was important to her was visual. She could draw, paint, and do calligraphy from an early age, and her sewing and embroidery went beyond following patterns. She was creative and could make her own pattern. She used to make posters and educational materials for her school, which was a new school and didn't have those things yet. She was proud of having done that and having earned her own school supplies because she did that service for the school. Here are pictures of some of the tablecloths she embroidered before the war. And if you very reasonably want to know how they were preserved when the whole family was forced to leave their home, that is another thing I failed to ask before it was too late. In 1939, Hungarian troops took over that part of Czechoslovakia. And in 1941, Hungary allied with Germany in invading the Soviet Union. The Germans and Hungarians also united to divide up the Jewish community, deporting some of them immediately to Poland and restricting the lives and businesses of all the others. In April 1944, the remaining Jews in their town were herded into a ghetto, and in May, they were transported to Auschwitz. One brother escaped because he was working in an auto shop and was warned about the roundup. And he survived and eventually joined the Czech army. My mother's father and the youngest brother had gone to a neighboring city to help his sister's children. So they went to Auschwitz separately and were murdered as soon as they arrived. My mother went to Auschwitz with her mother, her sister, and 4 of her brothers. Her mother and the second youngest brother were separated and murdered immediately. The 2 sisters and 3 of the brothers were considered old enough to work. So the girls and the boys were separated from each other and moved to different places to work as slaves under conditions that most people didn't survive. In fact, only one of the 3 brothers survived that year of slavery. During the whole time, my mother didn't know what happened to her parents or to her brothers. She was with her sister, and they were each dangerously ill at certain times, but they helped each other to stay alive. In August 1944, my mother and her sister were taken from Auschwitz to Silesia, an area between Germany and Poland, to work 12-hour factory shifts for the Telefunken Company, an electronics company that still exists. They worked there till the factory was bombed and the slaves were taken to work in Halle in Germany in an underground factory. My mother, like me, loved light and warmth. I cannot imagine what being underground added to her suffering. Decades later, after my mother had passed away, her sister wrote that they were so miserable that they wished the bombs would fall on them. They remained there till they were liberated, April 13th, 1945. In the slave labor camps, there were no paints or colored cloth or colored thread. I think that she turned to poetry because she had nothing to work with in her usual way. Did she feel compelled to express herself as an artist, using whatever she had? Did she think of it that way? Or did she just apply her usual resourcefulness to her situation and come up with a way to express her feelings? Did she share her poetry with anyone else at the time she wrote it? More things we can never know. She never wrote poetry after that period. I think once she got back to having sewing and art supplies, she never needed to do that. Maybe the fact that she had to learn a new language as an adult kept her from expressing herself in words. But she continued to make art. Once she was liberated and married and a mother, her art did not express fear and suffering. The one painting of hers that looks backward is this one, her grandmother's house in the country, where her mother would take the children in the summer. It is a small, simple house, but it's clear that my mother thought it was beautiful, and she was happy there. She painted this scene at least 3 times on various size canvases. I have this one, my son has one, and one of my cousins has the one that she made for her brother, who probably also remembered those summers. For my mother, the scene probably represented the loss of the family life that she had before the war. For me, it represents the joy of having grandparents, which I never had. The rest of what she painted and embroidered were scenes of the beauty of nature. She made a lot of art, and it hangs in the houses of many relatives. Her life was too short, but she left behind beauty that can still make people smile and appreciate life. In the second poem, she contrasts the memory of how wonderful and happy her family used to be when observing the Sabbath together, with her current reality of working in the slave labor factory. Friday night. This is a sad Friday night, Shabbat. Where is the time when, as if with magical power, it transformed the house and its dwellers into serene, satisfied, almost heavenly beings? It ordered all worries to retreat, the holiday mood to reign supreme, bringing knowledge of God and invoking gratitude for creation and redemption. Oh, where has gone that magical power? Has the Holy One, blessed be He, struck you too, as His people have been stricken? We have been stripped of our holidays and Sabbaths. Here I am on Friday night, inserting the plates and pulling the lever and thinking of Mother. And where is Father? Oh my God, what happened to us? The family riven, from home driven. I insert a plate and pull a lever, and my thoughts wander. My sister is ill, confined to the block, and I should be with her, and yet I'm not. Wipe your tears, the foreman is coming. I continue to feed the machine and pull the lever and think of the rest of my siblings, my dear brothers. And when I think of the youngest, not even the dread of the foreman will dam the tears. They roll down my cheeks, but can't flood the memories. It is a sad Friday night, Shabbat. Oh, dear God, forsake us not. Protect us with your might and power. Restore us to our homes and families, and send us your blessings. My mother lived through loss and desperation, and she never denied or forgot that. But she did find blessings later in her life, and she was grateful for them and shared them with others through her art.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you very much for giving that as a gift to all of us. I know how hard it is to sort of dig back into those memories and pull them forward and share them so honestly and courageously with a virtual room of people, many of whom you do not know. But I would say they know something really important about you now. And we all know an awful lot about your mom. And from the first time I heard you read her poems, I'm just so struck at what she created in the middle of just such horror and destruction. And her turn to beauty is inspiring. You know, it says so much about her. So thank you, thank you. It's an honor to hear those words. So I'm gonna ask everybody just to sort of breathe for a moment. Because now we want to invite all of you into this gracious, courageous space that has been so beautifully set by Morris and by Gloria. And we want to do a few minutes of a Q&A, a back and forth with all of you. The fact that so much has been offered up to us, I think, is an invitation for us to sort of more fully enter into this dialogue. Certainly, we wish we could all be in shared space together physically, but we have a pretty good second bet. So we have invited Morris back into the space with us. So we have both Gloria and Morris here. And this is how this is going to work. I'm going to ask all of you, whether you're watching us live on Facebook or whether you're on Zoom, to feel free to type your questions either into the chat box or the comments section. This is a moment to be curious. We want people to ask the questions that sometimes you don't have anyone to ask, or that you have been maybe afraid to ask. This is a moment for us to all still be learning together. So as the chat boxes and all that get populated with people's questions, I will very soon begin sort of posing those to both Morris and to Gloria to be able to answer for you. It's just such a special and rare opportunity. And I know that when we work with students, which we do an awful lot, Morris has spoken to more student groups than we can count. And Gloria has been doing that lately, even though it's been a lot of it virtual. And the questions are profound. They're everything from, they're about their faith and the faith of their family and whether faith survived the Holocaust. Sometimes the questions are about specific experiences. Sometimes the questions are highly personal, and sometimes they're just to gather the opinion of two people who have incredible wisdom. So we're just going to take about 5 or 10 minutes to have you all come into the conversation. And while we're waiting for specific questions to come across, I know we have also had just lots of words of love that I want to share. Lots of words of thank you and gratitude. People very moved to hear the words of your mother, Gloria, and to see even a few pieces of her artwork. People commenting on how extraordinary the stories are that you all are sharing. Some amazing person said that she found it overwhelming and breathtaking, and just very grateful for your willingness to share, Gloria. Heartfelt and poignant, beautiful. These are words that, you know, often we do not necessarily associate with things when we're talking about the Holocaust, right? Somebody typed a comment, what lovely artwork in the midst of such suffering. And it's something that I find a common theme with Gloria's story and with the exhibition that I find myself sitting in. There are artworks in here that show absolute dread and suffering. And then there are those works of art that actually tee up, you know, this tenacity of the human spirit and belief in something hopeful. So what questions y'all got? I know you have some. I know a lot of you know an awful lot, and many of you, I saw the names on the list, have your own experiences with family members or even yourself with the Holocaust. And yet we also know each experience is really quite different. So here is a question. This is for you, Gloria. Have any of your mom's paintings, embroideries, etc., been a part of the collection at Yad Vashem? So is any of her work living over in the International Holocaust Memorial?
My understanding is the poems are archived there. But I'm trying to find out more about that. It's not on the publicly accessible directory, but I have a second cousin over there who is part of that side of the family who's trying to find out. I believe I was told that.
That's cool. So the nice thing is then those poems are being sort of cared for in posterity because, you know, Gloria, when did you first even learn about these poems?
I believe she told us about them when we were children and too young to appreciate it. And because we were too young to appreciate it, she didn't talk about it after. And, you know, I just didn't go back to it. And I feel a huge amount of grief that I didn't explore that with her.
Right, right. You said several times in sharing this story, and we hear this so often from our second generation people, don't we, Gloria? All the questions they wish they had asked, right?
I actually came across something that I wanted to share. It was in the Washington Post, but it was an article by the granddaughter of a physicist, Chien-Shiung Wu, in which she says, like many children who come from families of immigrants, or from families of scientists, or families who lived through war and destruction, I didn't realize how little I knew of her life until it was too late to ask. So it's not just me, but it's so sad and frustrating now. There is one brother living, the one of the three who survived the labor camp, but he was too young to really remember any of this.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. Morris, I have a question that has come across for you. We have somebody with us tonight that is wondering if you have ever been able to forgive your captors, and if so, how? And we know this question comes up quite a bit, this question of forgiveness.
Yes, many times I asked that question. I don't know how I can do that. How can I forgive when 2/3 of my immediate family vanished, died, got killed? They're all, every which way you can think of. How can I forgive to those murderers? I can't. I'm sorry.
You don't have to say sorry. You don't have to say sorry, but that's some of those heavy truths that we all need to hear, right? Morris, how old were you?
Well, when I was taken away to the camps, I was 10 months old only. And I was liberated, I was 4.5 already. By the Russian army. By the Russian army, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, because that was a question somebody asked. They wanted to know how old you were. Here's a question for both of you, and I think it's a really brilliant one. What does Holocaust education look like 20 years from now, 40 years from now, 60 years from now, when the people who had the direct experience with the Holocaust are no longer on this earthly plane with us? What do you think?
Art is going to be really important. Different ways that people have expressed themselves. I think, you know, the novels of Wiesel have probably taught people more than a million lectures. I think that will be important. I think there will be a lot of, you know, video and you know, whatever the medium on which it lives will be, I think people will be able to see some of these survivors and some of the sites and so on in some form. But I think expressing it through art, and then the trick is to do that honestly and not in a sensationalist or gimmicky way.
Yeah.
But I think that will be a big part of it.
Morris, what do you think? What does Holocaust education look like as you sort of project your vision into the future?
I'll be honest with you, I worry a little bit. I hope I'm wrong. The reason is there's a bigger anti-Semitism today in the world than before World War II. Now, I would think the only way to keep it alive, I'm talking about the right way, is education. Education, education. Teach the children, the youngsters from there and on, because too late for the older ones.
Yeah, thank you. And I think having both of you, a first generation survivor, somebody who actually lived during that time, and Gloria as a second gen survivor, sort of grabbing that baton, Morris, that people like you and her mother have put in her hand is really important. I have another question for both of you. How did each of your families, how were they able to get to the United States? Can you briefly describe like how did your family get here?
We tried right after the war, like a year after. We went back, of course, to the city I was born in, to Chernobyl, which is in Ukraine. Russia occupied it, of course, those days. And we tried to leave, going to Israel. At the time, it was still Palestine because of the British occupied that. So we tried hard, but they didn't let us out, of course. So we went to Romania. It was a satellite to Russia, Romania at the time. And a foreign minister, a lady by the name of Anna Pauker in Romania. She was a Jewish lady, but she was also a good friend of Stalin. And she helped to about 150,000 Jews from Romania in 1950. So
Wow.
we were on top of that list, thank God, but we went to Israel.
Wow. Wow. Gloria?
Mine was much more sort of coincidental. I mean, my parents were living in Prague, and there was a Jewish agency helping the refugees. And someone told my father at that agency that a letter had come to someone from his hometown. And the family that it was addressed to, none of them survived. But my father wrote back saying that he was sorry to tell them that their family didn't survive, but also told them who he was and that he believed that he had two uncles in Cleveland, Ohio. And if they would try to contact the uncles and let them know that he had survived and how he could be reached. You know, he asked them to do that. Now, the easiest thing in the world for those people would have been to just, you know, be in their own grief and not to do anything. But they did find my father's uncles, and my father's uncles immediately began working to get him out. By the time they contacted him, he was engaged. So, I mean, this was, you remember, back letters going over the ocean physically. He told them he was engaged, and then they started working to get my mother also. So,
You know, what you're saying is so powerful, right? It almost like families where someone was able to survive often ended up being that sort of bridge, right? To get others out. Gloria, while we have you up on the screen, our good friend Lois Chepnick, I think you know Lois too.
certainly.
She's with us, which I'm so
Hi,
glad
Lois.
to. Hi, Lois. She asked a really beautiful question. She wanted to know, was there a pervasive feeling of grief and or hope in your household while you were growing up?
Yes.
Yes.
There was both.
Yeah.
There was definitely both. There was hope and there was happiness and there was a lot of gratitude. But, no one ever forgot what had happened and who was missing from our family.
Mm.
And what my parents had to go through. I haven't even talked about my father, who was in slave labor for 4 years, and on a death march, and what he went through. So that was never forgotten. But it was, there was new life happening, and they were very grateful.
Mm. Mm.
And they were very grateful for the state of Israel, which sort of came along just about that time as well.
Mm. So before I've got, I think, 2 more questions I'm going to ask y'all, but I do want to also add, Gloria, you have some friends also in the audience, a Carol and Marvin, and they just wanted to say that they thought this was such a beautiful and extraordinary story about your mother, a story which they did not know, even though you all are close. And these are the kinds of stories and life experiences that we know just continue to peel back. And I know we experience this working on our second generation work, that there are stories that are still being revealed to you as you're doing research on your family and having these conversations with people, right? But I just wanted you to know that your friends, they are feeling like they know you even more after this tonight. And with that said, this is a question for both of you from our friend Paul Hendrickson, who actually teaches at FSCJ, and we've done some visits with his students. And first of all, he's very grateful for you all sharing what you did tonight. But his question is whether commemoration events like this one tonight bring you any solace, or whether it mostly stirs up wounds and pain. So like, what does your participation in tonight, right now, like, what does that mean to you?
There is a lot of pain, and it is in some ways really a burden. I appreciate the chance to think about this stuff, to refine my thoughts, and to communicate about it. But it's not like, let's put on a show.
Yeah.
Not
It's
like
not
that
a
at all.
show. Yeah. Morris, what about you?
For me, it means a day to remember what happened, to express yourself, and get, I cannot find the words for it. It reminds us what happened, and I feel obligated to remind everybody about it. I know what's going to happen. I know what's happening. So I feel very, very, in a way, satisfied that we have this day, so I can express myself and I can tell others about
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Morris. And I think we all need to feel obligated, having taken all this in, and what to do with it. So I have one more question before we go into our last 2 or 3 minutes of remembrance. And it's a question actually from a first-generation American. Her parents escaped Russia during the pogroms. And she wants to know what you want us to keep doing to keep these stories alive. Like, what is your charge to all of us listening to you tonight? If you were going to leave us with some sort of call to either action or whatever you want to call it, what would that be from each of you? What do you want to leave us with?
what they teach the children now in Holocaust studies is about upstanders or bystanders. That everyone potentially has a role to play in either allowing cruelty and harm to people or in trying to stop it. And that can be on a global scale, or it can be, in the schoolyard with bullying. But, that all of us have a role to play in stopping negative things from happening, in not piling on, and in not allowing our fears of other people to make us not see their pain.
Thank you. That's powerful. Morris, what would you like to leave us with?
Well, people should know, especially young people, that we cannot fix the past, but we can improve the future. That's my goal.
Mine too. Mine too. So in our last couple minutes together, we need to remember that remembering is a sacred act. This right now is a time and a place where we grieve and we seek hope. So we're now going to sit together in silence for just a couple minutes as we share the names of some of the people killed during the Holocaust. And these are names that were offered up to us by people who are part of the Jewish Family Community Services family, which means these are people who are sharing this loss. These people sharing this loss are our neighbors. So we're going to sit for just 2 minutes and then a few wrap-up comments. So today is a time, obviously, for us to mourn, and we're mourning. We cannot forget people who were brutally murdered because of their simple existence. Their lives mattered then, and they matter now. And there are powerful lessons in us doing that remembering. It's also a day for us to express gratitude. And for me, my deepest gratitude goes to Morris and Gloria for being with us tonight, for holding this space for all of us. and for all who are out there doing the courageous work of remembering and sharing so that we don't forget. And let's remember, this is our collective work. No one said it better than Elie Wiesel when he said, this fiery memory remains. And we, you and I, all of us now are its very privileged custodians. So thank you for your presence tonight. We hope that you will still stay engaged with Jewish Family Community Services, have one of our speakers come and speak to your group, and continue to do good, be good, and take care of one another. Thank you.